So let's talk about indoor herbs.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you know it's going to be getting really cold weather soon, and to extend your harvest of fresh herbs, it's always good to bring a few pots in before the first killing frost. And some of the good choices in my particular idea of it are these that I brought along here today, and a few of them require a little bit less light than some of the others. Now, when I say less light, I mean they still require a good bit of sunlight, preferably in a south-facing window if you have that. But you also can use grow lights. But let me back up and tell you about those that require a little less light of the ones that I brought. Parsley is one that doesn't require just totally full sun all day like most of the herbs do. It will do okay with a little lower light. And of course mint. Mint can just about be grown anywhere. So it's a good one to choose for the lower light situations. And chives also doesn't require,
I didn't know that about chives.
And rosemary. Which is really, really easy to grow indoors if you don't overwater. You cannot overwater this plant, and that's what kills most indoor plants is overwatering, particularly those that do not like wet feet like rosemary. And it's, of course, some of these are evergreen throughout the winter for us or further south. You know, but basil, I'm telling you, you have to bring it in because it gets cold weather. It doesn't even like below 50 degrees. So that's a great choice for an herb to extend the harvest by bringing indoors because it's gone, buddy, when it gets cold weather. It is an annual. Oregano, let me see here's oregano. Oregano is a good one too to grow indoors because, and then in our climate, it can stay more or less evergreen unless we have really harsh weather. But it's a good one, you know, for people live up north or wherever that it gets really, really cold, to bring that one in and grow, because everybody likes oregano, right? What am I missing? Oh yeah, thyme.
The thyme.
Yeah, the thyme is a good one to bring in too, you know, because it just wants to sort of get really sick looking in our winters, or if it's not done die out completely like it tends to do in my garden.
It gets sparse. You know?
Yeah, it does get very sparse. Thyme is sparse. Yes, it is. Okay, so much of that nonsense, we need to move on. So, well, one thing you can always about vegetables, when we talk about vegetable gardening, is those that you don't eat the fruit or the flower, the bloom, like broccoli or something, they can have a little less light, like parsley and lettuce and, you know, the root crops like carrots and beets. Anyway, so that's why those, you know, are some that will, you know, do a little better with a little lower light. But again, low light not meaning 2 hours of, you know, a light in the room. So they need a south-facing window, and if you don't have that, which a lot of us don't, you can buy, you know, the grow lights, which they're all over the internet. You know, they're very, very popular now for people for seed starting and things like that. So there's no limit to the combinations and the ways you can get them, and because herbs and succulents require real high light in the wintertime, these are real popular with those kind of people that grow those kind of plants indoors. And incandescent lights and some of the LEDs just don't have the broad spectrum that plants require for photosynthesis.
Got it.
But they are, like I say, grow lights out there that help a great deal. So, the ones to not overwater, of course, are all of them, particularly the rosemary, the oregano, the Mediterranean herbs. You know, rosemary, oregano, what's that other one down there? Thyme. So those you just have to be really careful about. So, how do we do this? So what do you do? How do you set all this up? Well, you know, plants require a little bit of humidity. They like a little air circulation. How do you do that in an old dry winter home?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do. So one of the things that you can do is put your herbs in a little pebble tray, like I have here. This, Chris had to bring this in because it weighs about 40 pounds.
It is heavy. And
the reason it does is you know how you had those little tabletop fountains? Yeah, you know, you had the rocks and stuff around, you know, the thing, you know, worked about a year and got scum in it, and you're like, well, what am I going to do with this now? So I threw the pump away and the little pyramid, and I thought, man, that'd make a really good little plant tray. So, you know, it works really well for that purpose, and I have my pretty rocks in here, but the idea is, y'all, that if you water the plant, a little bit of water is going to stay in here, and that causes some humidity. Now, the bad part of that is that if you have moisture and organic matter, it turns out that fungus gnats, the dreaded indoor fungus gnats, and you can't get rid of little buggers, and they like organic matter of any kind, soil, whatever, to do their reproduction type cycle. So if you water from the base, you're not getting the soil wet, and you don't have moisture out here, so you don't have the problem as much because they got to have some moisture too.
Right.
But the other thing is, then you can put either really sharp sand, like concrete sand or river sand, which is called sharp sand, because it has sharp edges and it will gut the little critters as they crawl across the top of the soil. Or you can use the diatomaceous earth, which we were talking about previously, that works for slugs and a lot of other things, and gardeners know of diatomaceous earth.
Yes.
So that can be used too to prevent the fungus gnats. Now once you get them, you can get rid of them by putting out the little yellow sticky traps or doing insecticidal soap. But it seems contradictory to say that, always water from the bottom, so you're not, getting the wetness and the fungus and all this mess that can happen with root rot. You're getting it all to drain out. But then and keep the dirt out of this thing, because then you have a breeding ground for the gnats. Right.
Okay,
So,
got it.
but then you say, well, I don't want to cause a big scum mess or soot, and I thought of this coming over here, and I have done this, but I forgot. But you got all this water sitting in here, and you're thinking, well, they don't need to sit in water. That's never good for a plant that's not like a swamp plant. So get your turkey baster, ladies, and suck the extra water out and squirt it down the sink. It works. I tried it. Yeah, you have to move your little rocks around a little bit, get down there, and then just squirt it in the sink. Yeah, to keep the keep the funkiness out of your little.
How much water would you put in here though?
Well, I would for it to be taken up from the bottom, to water. I would probably put in this little thing about an inch, maybe. Okay. And then I'd watch it, and it may you not have to suck any of it out. The plants suck it all up, so maybe you don't have to do that. But you just don't need them standing in water is the key, and you don't want a breeding ground, for some of the fungus little things.
So let's take a look at the diatomaceous earth. So you just kind of
the thing though about the diatomaceous earth that I don't like is once it gets wet, it's ineffective. So you have to put it on dry soil at the top. So that's another reason to water from the bottom. So when you tilt it over.
Tilt it over.
See the kind of white powdery stuff? But anyway, it works pretty good as long as it stays dry. Which is kind of like, well, daggum. You always have to put out more slug bait and stuff because it's, once the diatomaceous gets wet, you got to reapply it.
It's ineffective.
Because it turns to more like talcum powder. So, anyway, well, let's go back to some of the other things we need to think about. You need to, use a plastic pot because clay can dry out in our indoor environments. Or glazed clay would be okay. Needs to have holes in the bottom because I don't care how careful you are, you're going to put too much water if it doesn't have holes in the bottom and it dries, flows on through.
That's a true statement.
So, And the light requirement, again, you can use the grow lights, like I said, and I have been growing this now for about a week under my, how a lot of people in their kitchens have the under-counter lights?
Oh, yes.
That under the cabinets, under the cabinets, they got the lights. So I put this up to get it up close to the light. I put it on a TV table. But it's just a little table, and I think that works pretty good.
So that actually works pretty good?
Yeah, it works pretty good.
Okay.
I mean, there's better setups if you use the grow lights. Now, I'm telling you, I'm a believer in the grow lights. And
I see. I
actually, yes, actually, way, way back in the midst of time, as an early gardener, I got my husband to build a little table with a frame that held 2 fluorescent light fixtures. And there was even grow lights back then, like 40, 50 years ago. They had them from different companies.
Right.
So my daddy bought me several of these lights. And so I had Jerry then build me this table with this frame, and I had them on these little dog chains that I could move the lights up and down, according to how my plants grew. And so I found that old table when we cleaned out an old building the other day, and I got it all set up. And even the old fluorescent thing, the old fluorescent light fixtures, they weigh 50 pounds. You ever pick one of them up? So I set it all up, and the darned if the lights did not still work.
Wow, so they did.
Yeah. So I think I took a picture and sent it to y'all, and it looks kind of puts kind of pink glow on the plants. But they grow like son of a guns under that light.
And it's still effective.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So, I mean, they work. They work.
So Doc, give us your take-home message for growing the herbs. And
Oh, okay. Well, just be vigilant about watching them and making sure you do not overwater. Try to figure out to get the light requirement right so they will grow. And if they're not growing, it's obvious to you because they'll be elongated and spindly.
Good point.
And have weak, stems and yellow leaves. So, they work pretty well. Now, if you make it all through the winter with them, if you hadn't cut them all down and used them in cooking and stuff, and you've got them still in the spring, you have to be careful moving them out because they've been growing indoors under a lot of different conditions, so you have to kind of acclimate them, to bringing them back outdoors. But it's a lot of fun to have fresh herbs during the winter.
A lot of fun, Dr. Kelly says. Can't you tell? Thank you, Dr. Kelly. That was fun. Thank you much.